internet? It is I, Tank Top Douche, coming at you with a card review for the upcoming Heart of the Huntress Legends of Runeterra expansion. As today we're going to be talking about two series of reveals, yesterday's and today's, and all the cards that came alongside with it. I think it's mostly Noxus, Demacia, Shadow Owls, and Ionia cards. I think Bilgewater as well. I have looked over the cards. I reacted to these on stream yesterday, and I have seen the reviews for today. And I thought I would pack it all in a video, and I give you guys my thoughts as to what I expect for from these cards and how they will impact the standard meta. I haven't played standard Legends of Runeterra in a bit because it's been mostly an Eternal season, and as a lot of you know, I've been diving quite heavily into team fight tactics lately, but I'm obviously looking forward to the upcoming expansion. I think the dev team is, I don't know what they're taking. I don't know what PED they're taking, but something is happening because their design quality is just going through the roof. And I am very, very impressed, especially these last 2 days of reviews. Like, the ambush mechanic in general just seems amazing. But on top of that, I just feel like the design quality overall of the cards is really, really going up, and I like the direction where things are headed. As we're gonna start talking about the Bonehide Tri-tail, and before anything, before I dive into it, rather, note that I do listen to feedback, and last time the video was very rushed because I actually reacted to the thing on stream. So because I took away the chat box, I felt like I wasn't quite as expressive as I usually am in these videos if I'm like fully recording them YouTube mode. So I'm gonna try to approach it that way from now on, right? Like talking about these cards, I'm gonna try to have a recording session, and if I happen to be streaming at the same time, then I'll turn on the YouTube switch for that. So yeah, enough of me rambling. We've been at it for 2 minutes. Oh my Deus, let's just talk about the cards. God damn it. Bonehide Tri-tail is a 4-mana cat with the Overwhelm keyword, 3/2 stat line. When I'm summoned, grant me +1/+1 for each different subtype other allies have. This is a recurring theme that we're gonna see throughout many of these cards. What we can expect from the cat, dog, bird, fish. Is that even I'm not, I don't know. I don't think there's a fish, but basically these animal tribes. Initially, I was expecting there to be like specific synergy between them, and maybe some of them can spawn archetypes similar to that of Lurk, which doesn't make me particularly excited because a lot of times, like in card games, when you have these tribalistic synergistic archetypes, they're kind of like auto deck builded, right? You just have to put as many of them together in the same deck, and that already will make it work. But this is different. This is kind of like anti-synergy. It actually, speaking of team fight tactics, it reminds me of an augment that I played with. For those of you who know TFT, I played with for the first time yesterday. I was being coached by my boy Panda, and there was this augment that essentially rewarded you for not having traits, aka synergies, expressed, right? And this is similar to that. Basically, this is an ongoing thing that we're gonna see throughout the new cat, bird, and dog archetypes, amongst other things. Is that you're gonna have cards like this that will have a better synergy with you having more variety of these types in your deck, and that makes deck building really, really interesting, right? Because that actually makes deck building harder because you have more options to include, because all you need to aim is for different subtypes within your deck. And due to the inclusion of cat, dog, and bird, and that being spread out across many cards, there's a lot of subtypes even in standard, which makes this card potentially very powerful in the proper like subtype diversity sort of like aggro build. that may be the face of Smark, is just having as many different shit and many different things as you can, and putting them all together and having that form up a solid curve to head into turn 4, in which you can drop a big boy cat Overwhelm, which would make Rico Rex proud. So Bonehide Tri-tail, I do expect to be a force within the meta. I do think this card will be very important for a lot of more aggressive sort of like subtype soup archetypes, And this is definitely going to be a really strong one because being a 4-drop with the Overwhelm keyword and being able to be like, people will underestimate just how big this thing can potentially get, and I'm excited to mess around with it. Not one of the cards that I'm most excited about personally because I don't like on curve Smork decks as much, but the aggro Timmies are gonna enjoy the Bonehide Tri-tail. Ravenborn Tome is where it's at for me, though. This is the card from the Noxus package that I'm the most excited for, as it has an amazing effect, right? For 2 mana, Ravenborn Tome gives you +1 power, but then it says when my bearer plays a skill, copy it. That is just bonkers. For example, going to Eternal, putting this on a Vladimir is pretty hilarious because you're going to be able to trigger Vladimir twice upon attack. When it comes to standard, I have to like sit down and actually look at the pool and see what combos. Some of them I'm reserving, you know, for expansion day, in which I'll show you what I cooked. But this card shows tremendous potential, especially towards units that trigger a skill upon attack. I believe, as that will allow you to duplicate them, and therefore this card I suspect will aim to be applied onto 4, 5, or 6 drops instead of early cost, because playing a Ravenborn Tome on something like a Legion Saboteur, not really worth it. The 2 mana for 1 more power to trigger that again, you'd rather play 2 Legion Saboteurs instead, or 2 1-drops, right? But the higher you go up in the curve, the more value this card represents, and I'm pretty sure there are some wonky combos ahead, even in standard, and I cannot wait to explore them. The design of this card is just amazing, and it makes me think, wow, it's kind of shocking that we haven't seen something like this before. So definitely from the Noxus package is the card that I'm most hyped about, as then we got Captain Kalrix. Captain Kalrix is a 5 mana 1/5 with Overwhelm and a Nexus Strike that says deal damage to the enemy Nexus equal to half its health, rounded up. Ladies and gentlemen, we got Ladros Jr. right here. Ladros Jr. for 5 mana who comes in and needs to strike onto the Nexus to effectively half it down. Extremely, perhaps one of the most, if not the most powerful Nexus Strike effect we've seen in the game. And I think a very, very interesting card. You're going to have to get creative in order to hit the Nexus with this. It does have Overwhelm, but it has only 1 power, so you're gonna have to combine Kalrix with other cards to be able to get that damage, you know, spreading over to the Nexus even after he is blocked. But if you do so, there's quite the payoff, ladies and gentlemen. Being able to just reduce the Nexus by half is absolutely nuts. And this card, you know, depending on the card pool around it, could become very scary, or just an outright meme. We'll see where Captain Kalrix lands, but it is definitely a very interesting Noxus design. Sort of like this face capability that Noxus is able of, but English. But at the same time, one that requires more than just playing this card on curve and attacking, right? Like, you need to actually think and, you know, like I said, get creative with it to be able to trigger the ability. But really, really dope design. But for me, out of these 3, the Ravenborn Tome is the one that really gets me most excited. As then the Demacia cards, oh my god, these cards are just... These cards are pretty bonkers. First of all, we got the Crested Lionhawk, 6 mana 5/5 with tough play. If an ally has a different subtype than me, manifest a Demacian spell. The stat line is, like I said on the stream when I was reviewing this card, good enough. It's clearly understated for a 6-drop, but because of the tough keyword, 5/5 is good enough for this card to actually carry weight and net you value through its body alone, which is important for a unit of such cost. But on top of that, it's able to net you really, really strong value, allowing you to manifest a spell from within one specific region. So that narrows down the options, especially in a format like Standard. Will this card be ultimately competitively, not just competitively viable, but also like meta defining? I don't think it'll be meta defining. I don't really know what kind of home this has right now, because it wants to be played in a deck that's centered around value, but Demacia is not really the kind of region that, you know, is best suited for this sort of playstyle. But I will definitely be exploring options of combining Demacia with more reactive-based regions and seeing if something like a Crested Lionhawk could just net me a solid play on 6 that keeps the gas rolling. Not sure what they. I mean, keep in mind that you have to have an ally to trigger this, but it's one of the least heavy requirements for a card like this. Like, you can almost ignore it as long as you have an ally that's not a bird on the board. This works. So that means that this can fit all sorts of different decks. But I'm not sure if the region is the right place for it. We'll just have to wait and see. But the other two cards are way more exciting, in my opinion, as we have the Mage Seeker Jr. and the Scrutinizing Sergeant. The Mage Seeker Jr. says that spells that cost less than 3 cost 3 instead. This card single-handedly kills Fifth Samira, in case you're wondering. People like to mention Seraphine a lot, right? Because, oh, well, you make it so that Seraphine spell doesn't copy because it goes from 2 costs to 3 costs. And that's just like, fine, but that's honestly a little bit, you know, that's an underwhelming example to end in, because the amount of decks that this card just single-handedly shuts down are not decks that want to be playing 2 spell mana cards. They want to be playing 1 spell mana cards. They want to be chaining all this cheap stuff together in a way that's kind of how Noxious functions right now from an aggressive standpoint. And this card just single-handedly shuts that down. This card is like an actually good stony suppressor. Like, this card has a real stat line, being a 3 mana 3/3, and there's just a lot of decks that it single-handedly destroys, including Seraphine, but also mostly including Fifth Samira. Like, Fifth Samira just hates this card like no other. It's actually crazy. It's a very, very powerful effect, and depending on the nature of the meta, this card will be a thing. A very, very menacing thing. It's something that you got to watch out for. And yeah, perhaps with this expansion, we're going to see Demacia take different shapes and forms, right? And I'm really, really eager to see that. I think Mage Seeker Jr. is both an exciting, but also a little bit of a scary card as well. Exciting purely, though, I would apply to Scrutinizing Sergeant. 5 mana 3/5 elite. Pick a unit from the top 5 cards of your deck upon play that costs 3 or less, and you summon it and place the rest into your deck. So like a top deck tutor. And you may think, wow, elite synergy. You play this and you bring our other elite. And it's like, yeah, sure, Timmy, that's great. The Unga Bunga is stronger. Fantastic. I think there's more to this card, though. I think this card can go in elite deck, sure, but I think this card has awesome potential outside of that. I really want to explore other regions to combine this card with, especially those with heavy upon summon effects on their units, where you can just get tremendous value out of this 5-drop, which has just enough of a stat line to be taken seriously. And I just really, really, really like the Scrutinizing Sergeant. And out of these 3 cards, the same with the equipment last time with Noxus, this is the card that I'm most hyped about, because there's just a lot of experimenting to be done. And it's the first time we've had a card like this that pulls something from the top. We have had Anaka upon attack doing that, right? But this card comes in way earlier, and I just think there's a lot of neat combos ahead to explore with this 5-drop right here. And that, I didn't even bother with these puzzles, to be honest. I'm lazy for this shit, so I'm gonna let Reddit solve that. And we're gonna move on to today's reveals. As today we have Shadow Owls, Bilgewater, and I believe Ionia cards. And I think today's card package compared to yesterday's is a little bit weaker, but still very exciting nonetheless. We got the Tufted Web Spinner, who is absolutely adorable. Gonna be the thumbnail for today's video, obviously. As we have essentially an Arachnoid Sentry that, you know, has a bit of a slightly different effect. If you have a different subtype than the Tufted Web Spinner upon play, which is not that easy to enable, because that technically means if you want to be playing this on curve, you need to have played a 1-drop prior, and it needs to not be a spider, right? So that's a heavier requirement than you would expect. And also, considering the spiders have been mostly removed from standard, it's interesting to see what kind of decks the Tufted Web Spinner will fit. Maybe it will fit the subtype pool list because of that reason. But as you guys can see, we give it an enemy -2 this round, which means we have the potential to remove a fearsome blocker. We are paying quite a price for this ability, though. We're losing 1 health compared to the Arachnoid Sentry, which is a 3/2 vanilla fearsome unit. This is a 3/1. In standard, there are less pings, but pings still exist nonetheless. So this stat line is not really the greatest. And I don't know if the effect is as good to really justify it ultimately. I will still try the card out, if not purely for the art, because it is, I don't know, it's just amazing. I just can't stop looking at it. I think they also knew this, which is why this is the card that they're really putting in the background today. But goddamn, the adorableness is just off the charts. I've never been so enticed by a spider. And I'm gonna end the rant there. Deck Hunter is a 2-mana Bilgewater 1/3 cat with a play effect. Another underwhelming stat line. Instead of the vanilla 2/3, we got, you know, like a 3/1. Now we got a 1/3. So these units are paying a price for these abilities, right? But this one is a much more interesting one, or at least one that I think is going to provide more value. Manifest the Follower that has a different subtype than allies in play. That is a very broad pool, though, right? A good card to compare this to is, for example, the Pharaoh's Financer. The Pharaoh's Financer is also a 2-drop to manifest, but he does so for 6, like, really heavy spells. I would argue that the pool for, like, different subtype allies is significantly larger. So Deck Hunter is going to be more RNG focused, but I think the value will be there nonetheless. The ability to trade into 1-drops, into 1-mana 2/1 specifically, is really important. The 1/3 stat line allows you to do that despite the power reduction, and being able to just replace itself in hand upon entry is always a great thing. And I find it interesting, you know, that Bilgewater has an access to a manifest card like this, and I want to see where that takes the region, especially in the standard format. As then we got the Siren Song, a new Husk toy, ladies and gentlemen. Summon a random Husk, and then you grant 1-cost allies everywhere, +1/+1. This card can fit 1-drop decks outside of Husk builds, but I will be testing it with your girl Evelyn first. As it's really interesting because it's a bit of like an early game investment that you can do as early as turn 3. Turn 3, you can spend 4 mana, and you can still have 2 spell mana in the back after, or 2 mana left after playing this, which allows you to play Siren Song and something like a Soldier, for example. So I think the card cost is definitely going to make it very, very competitively viable, and it feels like a bit of an auto-include for Husk decks, really, as of right now, but I could be wrong. As then we got the Swindler's Den, a 6-mana landmark. Your cards in hand have fleeting. When you play a card, you draw 1. This is a bit of a weird card to analyze, right? Because potentially it just gives you endless value, right? Every time you play a card, you're drawing 1. Every time you play another card, you're drawing 1. The potential in standard with Twisted Fate is pretty funny, but talking about standard, this is kind of a card that wants to be in like aggressive decks, but is a little bit too expensive for them, I think. When you play this, you lose your hand. You got to keep that in mind. First of all, you're paying 6 mana, and tempo-wise, you're doing nothing. Like you're setting up this very pretty landmark on the board, but it's not really doing anything immediately, except making you lose your hand by the end of the turn, because your entire hand becomes fleeting and will be lost. Do we have enough Viscera synergies running around in standard to really benefit from this? I'm not really sure. I don't think we do. And I do think it's a bit slow for what it wants to be doing, but I could be very wrong. It's also the region that this card is in. But maybe there's a world in which you can play this in something like Seraphine Jack, right? I'm a big fan of that deck. Not everybody is, but I love it. And I think this card could lead to some crazy things. Like if you have a Mariah on board and you play this, and the thing is you have to see the next turn. That's the thing. You have to see the next turn happen. Because that's asking for a lot, right? Because from that point onwards, when you start chaining cards, you're going to be able to draw and just combo endlessly. But I don't even know if the deck really needs a card like this to begin with, to be honest. The deck needs more stuff to help it with the tempo. So right now, I just don't know what the home for this is. I don't know what the ideal archetype wants this card. It's a card with tremendous potential inherently, but a bit of an awkward identity. And yeah, I'm gonna end it there because I don't really know. I don't see it very viable right now. But maybe my analysis on it is completely wrong, and there's like an archetype that I'm not thinking about that just really fits it in, but I can't really think of it as of now. As then we got the Sacred Shears, 1 mana equipment that allows you to translate or basically convert the unit into a Gwen. Because whenever another ally gains power from Hallowed, so does my bearer. Very cheap equipment, won't be doing anything early on, But as soon as the hallowed units start dying, this is going to net you a lot of power. And it's going to be really interesting. I mean, it's hard to say that a 1-mana equipment will be unviable, especially one that has such a high ceiling. So I do expect hallowed decks to be playing this. Like, it just feels like it's too good not to. And it's a very neat addition to the archetype. As then we have the Necrotic Arachnoid. This card is dope as hell. When I'm summoned, summon 2 Necrotic Nestlings. When another ally dies, drain 1 from the enemy nexus. Ladies and gentlemen, the Neverglade Collector is back. But it costs 8 mana now. So, a little bit slower. But upon entry, is spreading out into 3 different bodies. So, it is buying you time, unless you're facing elusives. And it is a really fun looking card. A really fun looking card. Like, I would love to play this with like Husks, for example, because with Husks you're triggering the deaths immediately and you're draining the nexus immediately. Because you're draining the nexus immediately, even though this card is such a late game bomb, it can allow you to heal up again. And that can be a sort of like win condition against aggressive decks, especially in a format where there's not as much direct quality face damage. Like, you have to combine cards in standard to be aggro. And that gives a card like Necrotic Arachnoid a little bit more time to be able to stabilize the board and your Nexus health for you. As the Necrotic Nestlings are pretty good spawns to have alongside a 5/8 body. And I just love the art of these spider cards. It is just amazing. Like, I am obsessed over these spider cards. These look so dope. And I'm excited to see what the spider archetype is going to become in standard, right? Because it's been a very basic, like, straightforward aggro concept in original Legend of Runeterra, but I'm excited for them to make it more unique and convoluted. You know, I'm always in the mood for archetypes to be more convoluted. I'm a masochist. I like to overthink. As we have the last page right here for Ionia, the All-Seeing Oracle allows you to effectively look into your opponent's hand, just the prank, bro, and create a Carvings of Divination for a fast or slow spell. And that allows you to counter said spell for just 1 mana. So it's kind of like a deny that your opponent knows is coming, but you're getting a 4/3 body into it. You play this guy, as long as you have 5 mana, you play this guy. But the key thing about this card is that this is an upon, well, is this a skill or not? Pick one of, it's a play effect. Pick 1 of 3 fast or slow spells in the enemy's hand or deck. I assume this happens immediately, because if you play the All-Seeing Oracle and it creates a skill on the stack, your opponent can technically react with the spell that you chose before you generate the Carvings of Divination. I'm not sure exactly. I think this guy does make it immediately, but I could be completely wrong about that. We see the play highlighted in yellow. I'm not sure if that always means that it generates a skill on the stack or not. I feel like I should know this. But see, for the Tufted Wet Spinner, I'm pretty sure that happens immediately. Yeah, you see the Deck Hunter manifesting, that's not a skill. That's definitely not a skill. So I'm pretty sure the All-Seeing Oracle happens immediately. So you look at the cards, you choose one, and then you have a 1 mana, which means if you have 5 mana, this is pretty insane. Because you're able to set up a counter. The thing is, you're specifically only being able to counter 1 card, but a lot of times you're saving up the deny for a specific card anyways. So this card can be potentially really insane in the right hands. Like, in the hands of a very good player, this card can allow you to effectively generate a lot of tempo while disrupting your opponent's key play, right? Because being able to set up a body and then just countering the spell for 1 mana is way stronger than just the deny. But you have to set this up prior. You have to see the spell coming prior. So obviously, the reliability of the deny is still always going to be higher. But I'm really interested to see how these new, more complex deny packages, like the All-Seeing Oracle or the card that we saw within the Ambush reveal, the 3-drop with the Spell Shield. I want to see how these cards play out in competitive and in against like an actual human, right? Who knows they're a potential thing, or who knows that they happened. Like, how dependent will they be on proper sequencing and proper timing? And what kind of power level are they ultimately going to be at? I'm not really sure. And that's because the designs are just like so unique within this expansion, and so new in many aspects as well. It's really hard to evaluate a lot of these cards without properly testing them, is what I'm trying to say. but they are extremely exciting. And I think All Seeing Oracle is one of the most interesting cards so far revealed in this expansion. Not definitely way more interesting than the last card we're going to see, the Rejuvenating Breeze, which is essentially another 5-mana draw 2 cards, but this one heals your Nexus 3. I don't see this card replacing Place Your Bets, to be honest. I think Place Your Bets is the best draw spell in the game right now, and I'm surprised it hasn't been nerfed yet, to be honest. And I see little reason to prioritize Rejuvenating Breeze over that, personally. And that's where I'm going to end my analysis. So I just realized I haven't looked at the screen. Yeah, okay. Okay, my everything fit in because I just realized that the cards barely fit. Can you imagine? I did this entire video and then you can only see half the screen or some shit. Professionalism. So yeah, I love you guys. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you think about the cards, as tomorrow we'll be having a champion review, which I will be probably reacting to on stream. And yeah, that's all I gotta say. Have a solid day. Thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned for regular content. Hope you are excited for the expansion as I am. You know, it's kind of like going for the standard outro, but it doesn't quite apply. I'm gonna stop talking. Have a solid day. Let me know what you think. I'll see you around.